Before Clint Eastwood was a Hollywood legend, he learned acting from a talking horse. Before a famous voice actor went uncredited for 6 years, he demanded recognition but settled for more money instead. The beloved 1960s sitcom, Mr. Ed, hides secrets more bizarre than its talking horse premise, from a mysterious death covered up for decades to a peanut butter lie that fooled the world. These shocking revelations will forever change how you see television's most famous palomino. Fact 1. The peanut butter myth was a complete lie. For decades, fans of Mr. Ed believed they knew the secret behind the talking horse's moving lips. The most popular explanation spread like wildfire through Hollywood and beyond. Crew members would smear peanut butter on the horse's gums, and Bamboo Harvester would move his mouth trying to lick it off, creating the illusion that he was speaking. This story became so widely accepted that it appeared in magazines, books, and countless interviews about the show's production methods. But the peanut butter explanation was completely fabricated, and the person who created this myth was none other than Alan Young himself, the actor who played Wilbur Post. Young later confessed that he deliberately invented the peanut butter story during interviews, knowing it was entirely false. The reason behind his deception was surprisingly thoughtful. The show's producers, Al Simon and Arthur Lubin, had specifically asked the cast and crew to keep the real method secret, because they worried that children would be disappointed if they learned the technical details of how the magic was created. In a 2009 interview, Young revealed the truth, explaining that he started the peanut butter lie and everyone simply believed it without question. The actual technique was far more mechanical and less charming than the peanut butter tale. Initially, a piece of nylon thread was placed under the horse's lip, and when crew members pulled on it, Bamboo Harvester would try to remove the irritating thread by moving his mouth, which looked exactly like talking on camera. Over time, the intelligent horse learned to perform this lip movement on cue without needing the nylon thread at all. Trainer Les Hilton taught Bamboo Harvester to move his lips whenever someone touched his hoof, and eventually the horse became so well trained that he would start and stop the talking motion simply by watching when Young finished speaking his lines during scenes. Fact 2. A completely different horse starred in The Lost Pilot. The Mr. Ed that millions of viewers came to love almost never existed, because the very first pilot episode featured a completely different horse that turned out to be an absolute nightmare to work with. This original pilot, filmed in 1958 and titled The Wonderful World of Wilbur Pope, starred a chestnut gelding instead of the golden palomino that would eventually become famous, and the production was such a disaster that everything had to be scrapped and started over from scratch. The chestnut horse proved to be unruly, uncooperative, and nearly impossible to direct during filming. Unlike the intelligent and trainable Bamboo Harvester who would later take over the role, this first horse had what producers described as a complete breakdown during production, refusing to follow commands and making it impossible to shoot the scenes needed for the show. The animal was so difficult to manage that the entire concept seemed doomed before it even began. But the horse wasn't the only casualty of this failed first attempt. The human cast was completely different as well, with actor Scott McKay playing the lead character Wilbur Pope and Sandra White playing his wife. McKay lacked the natural comedic timing and gentle demeanor that Alan Young would later bring to the role, and the chemistry between the actors and the problematic horse was non-existent. When the original pilot failed to attract any network interest or sponsors, producer Arthur Lubin made the decision to start completely fresh. The entire cast was replaced. The character's name was changed from Wilbur Pope to Wilbur Post, and most importantly, a new horse was found. Trainer Les Hilton was given just 1 month to locate a replacement animal, and he discovered Bamboo Harvester on a San Fernando Valley farm for $1,500. This second pilot, featuring the new cast and the cooperative palomino, became the foundation for the beloved series that would run for 6 successful seasons. Fact 3. Ed's voice actor remained anonymous for 6 years. Throughout the entire 6-year run of Mr. Ed, viewers never knew who provided the distinctive voice that brought the talking horse to life, because the producers deliberately kept the voice actor's identity completely secret from the public. The show's credits listed Mr. Ed as being played simply by himself, with no mention whatsoever of the human performer who delivered all those witty one-liners and clever comebacks that made the character so memorable. The mystery voice belonged to Alan "Rocky" Lane, a former Western movie star who had appeared in over 125 films during his career from 1929 to 1966, mostly low-budget cowboy pictures where he played heroic characters. Lane was born in Mishawaka, Indiana, in 1909, and had even attended the University of Notre Dame on a sports scholarship before dropping out to pursue acting, making him a seasoned performer with decades of experience when he took on the Mr. Ed role. Initially, Lane was perfectly content to remain anonymous, and the producers were happy to keep things that way because they believed the mystery added to the show's magical appeal. They would only refer to him in interviews as an actor who prefers to remain nameless, which helped maintain the illusion that the horse might actually be talking. However, once Mr. Ed became a massive hit and started attracting millions of viewers every week, Lane began to feel differently about his invisible status and started campaigning for proper screen credit. When Lane approached the producers demanding recognition for his work, they found themselves in a difficult position because they wanted to preserve the mystique that had helped make the show so popular with audiences, rather than give him the screen credit he wanted, which might have disappointed children who believed in the magic. The producers offered Lane a compromise that he ultimately accepted. They would increase his salary significantly instead of putting his name in the credits, allowing him to benefit financially while keeping the show's mystery intact. Fact 4. The real Ed died in 1970, but fans visited the wrong grave. For decades, devoted fans of Mr. Ed made pilgrimages to a grave in Tahlequah, Oklahoma, believing they were paying their respects to the beloved talking horse. But they were actually visiting the wrong animal entirely. The real bamboo harvester, who portrayed Mr. Ed throughout the show's entire run, died in 1970 in California under tragic circumstances, while the horse buried in Oklahoma was actually his stunt double named Pumpkin. According to Alan Young, who remained close friends with Bamboo Harvester after the show ended, the real Mr. Ed died from an accidental tranquilizer overdose while living in retirement at a stable in Burbank, in California with his trainer, Lester Hilton. Young explained that Hilton was out of town visiting relatives when a temporary caregiver saw the heavy horse struggling to get up from the ground, which was a common problem for Bamboo Harvester, due to his weight and age-related health issues, including arthritis and kidney problems. The well-meaning caregiver, thinking the horse was in distress, administered a tranquilizer to calm him down. But for unknown reasons, Bamboo Harvester died within hours of receiving the injection. Young said that the horse's remains were cremated, and his ashes were spread by Hilton at a location in California known only to the trainer himself. Meanwhile, Pumpkin, the palomino quarter horse who had served as Bamboo Harvester's stunt double and posed for publicity photos throughout the show's run, continued making public appearances as Mr. Ed after the real star's death. When Pumpkin died in February 1979 and was buried at Snodgrass Farm in Oklahoma, news outlets reported it as the death of the original Mr. Ed, and a marker was placed over his grave. Alan Young knew the truth but chose to remain silent about the mix-up because he didn't want to, in his own words, shatter their illusions and disappoint the fans who were mourning what they believed was their beloved talking horse. Fact 5. Ed was actually trained using fishing line torture. The real method used to make Mr. Ed appear to talk was far more uncomfortable for the horse than anyone imagined, involving a thin piece of nylon fishing line that was deliberately placed inside Bamboo Harvester's mouth to create the irritation needed for the talking effect. This technique, which trainer Les Hilton had previously used while working on the Francis the Talking Mule movies, required threading the nylon line under the horse's upper lip, where it would cause enough discomfort to make the animal try to dislodge it by moving his mouth. When Alan Young finally revealed the truth in a 2009 interview, he explained that the nylon thread was initially manipulated by crew members who would pull on it during filming, causing Bamboo Harvester to move his lips in an attempt to get rid of the annoying material. The horse's natural response to this irritation created the perfect illusion of speech when combined with Alan Lane's voice work, and viewers watching at home had no idea that the seemingly magical talking effect was actually the result of the animal's discomfort. The technique was certainly more mechanical and less pleasant than the charming peanut butter story that Young had invented to protect the show's secrets. However, Les Hilton, who had learned this method during his work with Will Rogers, and was known as a gentle trainer who never used cruel tactics, appeared to use the fishing line approach as humanely as possible, while still achieving the desired visual effect. Over time, the intelligent bamboo harvester learned to associate the lip movements with specific cues, and Hilton was eventually able to train him to perform the talking motion simply by touching the horse's hoof. This progression meant that the nylon line became unnecessary during later seasons of the show, as the well-trained horse had memorized when to start and stop moving his lips based on watching Alan Young's performance and responding to his trainer's subtle signals. Fact 6. The show started with a different name and different family. The beloved television series that became known as Mr. Ed was originally supposed to have a completely different title and main character name that would have tied Alan Young's real identity directly to the show's potential failure or success. When producers first approached Young about starring in the series, it was called Wilbur Pope and Mr. Ed, which meant that Young's character would share the same last name as the actor himself, creating an uncomfortable connection between his personal reputation and the show's outcome. Alan Young was already an established performer with over 20 years of experience in radio and television comedy when he was offered the lead role, and he had serious concerns about attaching his real surname to what seemed like a risky and unusual concept. The idea of a talking horse sitcom was so bizarre and unprecedented that Young worried it might become a career-damaging flop that would forever be associated with his actual name if the character remained Wilbur Pope. Young's hesitation about the name wasn't just about professional vanity. He genuinely feared that if the show failed spectacularly, audiences would remember Pope as the guy who starred in that terrible talking horse disaster. This concern was significant enough that Young initially refused to take the role unless the producers made changes to distance his real identity from the character he would be playing on screen. The producers, recognizing that Young was their best choice for the part because he naturally seemed like the sort of guy a horse would talk to, according to director Arthur Lubin, agreed to Young's demand and changed the character's surname from Pope to Post. This simple but crucial modification gave Young the professional protection he needed, allowing him to take on the role without worrying that a potential failure would be permanently linked to his real name, and the show went on to become a massive success that ran for 6 seasons and made Young famous worldwide. Fact 7. Ed won 4 consecutive Hollywood Awards. Bamboo Harvester achieved something that most human actors never accomplish in their entire careers, winning 4 consecutive Patsy Awards during the 1960s and becoming one of the most decorated performers in Hollywood history. The Patsy Awards, which stood for both Picture Animal Top Star of the Year and Performing Animal Television Star of the Year, were the entertainment industry's most prestigious honors for animal performers, running from 1951 to 1973 and recognizing outstanding achievements by non-human actors in film and television. The American Humane Association created these awards in 1939 after a horse was killed during the filming of the Tyrone Power movie Jesse James, and they became Hollywood's equivalent of the Academy Awards for animal performers. The ceremonies were star-studded events hosted by major celebrities, with Ronald Reagan presenting the very first award to Francis the Talking Mule in 1951 at Hollywood's Carthay Circle Theater. Bamboo Harvester's 4-year winning streak during the height of Mr. Ed's popularity was an extraordinary accomplishment that put him in elite company alongside other legendary animal actors like Lassie, Francis the Talking Mule, and Flipper. The awards were divided into different categories including canine, equine, wild animals, and a special category that covered everything from cats to pigs, making the competition fierce among talented animal performers from across the entertainment industry. At a time when animals rarely received any official recognition for their contributions to entertainment, Bamboo Harvester's consecutive wins demonstrated both his exceptional performance abilities and the show's massive cultural impact. His award collection was more impressive than many human stars could claim, as winning 4 major Hollywood awards in a row is an achievement that eluded countless celebrated actors throughout their careers, making the talking horse one of the most consistently honored performers of his era. Fact 8. The horse was a Hollywood diva who controlled filming. Bamboo Harvester developed a reputation as one of Hollywood's most demanding stars, displaying classic diva behavior by taking complete control over the filming schedule and deciding for himself when each day's work was finished. Unlike human actors who had to follow the director's schedule and the production company's timeline, this 4-legged performer would simply walk off the set whenever he felt he had done enough work for the day, leaving the entire cast and crew with no choice but to wrap filming and call it quits until the next morning. This wasn't just an occasional occurrence or a sign of the horse being tired or uncooperative. It became a regular pattern that the production team had to build into their daily planning. Bamboo Harvester seemed to have an internal clock that told him when his workday should end. And once he made that decision, no amount of coaxing, treats, or encouragement from trainer Les Hilton could convince him to continue performing scenes. The cast and crew quickly learned to recognize the warning signs that their star was about to call it quits, and they would try to rush through any remaining shots before Bamboo Harvester made his dramatic exit. Despite this challenging behavior, the production team actually came to respect the horse's professional instincts, with some cast members noting that his decision to leave often coincided with moments when the quality of filming was starting to decline due to fatigue or loss of focus. Interestingly, while Bamboo Harvester could be demanding about when filming ended, he was remarkably professional during the actual shooting process and could often complete his scenes in just one take. This combination of high-quality performance and strong-willed personality made him both one of the most talented and most temperamental stars on the Filmways lot, earning him a light-hearted reputation as a true Hollywood diva who knew his own worth and wasn't afraid to assert his authority over the production schedule. Fact 9. Ed's bizarre diet included gallons of sweet tea. Bamboo Harvester had one of the most unusual diets in Hollywood, but also developing a peculiar taste for sweet tea that he would drink by the gallon. This bizarre beverage preference became part of his daily routine on set, with production assistants regularly providing him with large quantities of sweet tea or sugary water mixtures that seemed to keep his energy up and his mood cooperative during filming. The sweet tea habit was so well known among the cast and crew that it became part of Bamboo Harvester's unofficial celebrity rider demands, much like human stars who require specific brands of bottled water or particular types of food in their dressing rooms. While most horses are perfectly content with plain water and standard feed, this pampered performer had developed refined tastes that the production team was happy to accommodate, especially since keeping him satisfied meant smoother filming days and fewer of his famous walk-offs. Whether the sweet tea actually provided any real benefits to Bamboo Harvester's performance, or was simply a quirky preference that developed over time remains unclear, but the production team treated it seriously and made sure his supply never ran out. Some reports suggest that the beverage might have been water mixed with molasses or sugar rather than actual brewed tea, which would have been more appropriate for a horse's digestive system while still satisfying his apparent craving for sweetness. This unusual dietary requirement added another layer to Bamboo Harvester's reputation as a demanding star who knew what he wanted and expected the production to provide it. Combined with his massive daily hay consumption, the sweet tea habit made him one of the most high-maintenance animal actors in television history, with food and beverage costs that probably exceeded those of some human cast members. But his exceptional performance quality made these eccentric demands worthwhile for the show's continued success. Fact 10. Alan Young dyed his hair to avoid camera problems. Alan Young faced an unexpected technical challenge that forced him to completely change his natural appearance for the entire 6-year run of Mr. Ed, because his blonde hair created serious problems when filmed with the black and white cameras used during the early 1960s. The issue wasn't simply that his hair looked different on camera, it was that blonde hair would virtually disappear or appear nearly invisible when captured by the film technology of that era, creating the bizarre effect of making Young look almost bald, or creating strange visual gaps where his hair should have been. This technical limitation of black and white cinematography was a well-known problem in Hollywood during that time period, affecting many naturally blonde actors and actresses who had to make similar adjustments to their appearance for television and film work. The cameras and lighting systems used in the early 1960s simply couldn't properly register certain shades of blonde hair, particularly lighter tones, causing them to blend into the background or appear as indistinct wisps that would be distracting to viewers. Rather than risk having his character look strange or unprofessional on screen, Young made the decision to dye his hair a much darker color that would photograph clearly and consistently throughout the show's production. This meant that for 6 full years, from 1961 to 1966, Young had to maintain an artificial hair color that was completely different from his natural blonde, requiring regular touch-ups and salon visits to keep the darker shade looking natural and consistent between filming sessions. The hair dyeing became such a routine part of Young's preparation for the role that it was simply accepted as one of the many technical requirements needed to create the polished look that television audiences expected. This behind-the-scenes detail demonstrates how many seemingly simple aspects of television production actually required careful planning and ongoing maintenance to achieve the seamless final product that viewers saw in their living rooms each week. Fact 11. Clint Eastwood credits Ed with teaching him to act. Clint Eastwood, who would go on to become one of Hollywood's most respected actors and directors, credits his guest appearance on Mr. Ed with teaching him a crucial lesson about acting that shaped his entire career. In 1962, long before he became famous for playing the man with no name in spaghetti westerns or Dirty Harry in crime thrillers, Eastwood was primarily known as Rowdy Yates on the television western series Rawhide when he appeared in the episode titled Clint Eastwood Meets Mr. Ed. The experience of playing himself on the comedy show turned out to be more challenging than Eastwood had expected, because he found himself struggling with questions that he had never encountered before in his acting career. In a later interview with the New York Times, Eastwood explained that the role forced him to confront the difficult task of portraying his own personality on screen, which led him to ask himself confusing questions like, what would the real me do in this situation, that were making his performance feel unnatural and overthought. This internal struggle during filming became a turning point for the young actor, as he realized that he was asking himself questions that he shouldn't be posing, and was overcomplicating what should have been a straightforward performance. Eastwood said that the Mr. Ed experience taught him that the hardest thing for a professional actor to do is to play themselves. But it also showed him the importance of not overthinking his approach to acting. The lesson he learned from working with the talking horse and the show's cast was to be true to himself and trust his natural instincts rather than getting caught up in complex analytical thinking about his performances. Eastwood later credited this realization with helping him develop the understated, natural acting style that would become his trademark in countless westerns, action films, and dramas throughout his legendary career spanning more than 6 decades in Hollywood. Fact 12. The original horse got sold before production began. The entire Mr. Ed series almost never happened because the horse that was supposed to star in the show was unexpectedly sold just 1 month before production was scheduled to begin, creating a last-minute crisis that threatened to derail the entire project. After the disastrous first pilot with the unruly chestnut gelding had been scrapped and recast with new human actors, the producers had found a different horse to feature in their second pilot episode and presentation reel, which they used to successfully pitch the show to the Studebaker Corporation for sponsorship. The Studebaker deal represented a major breakthrough for the project, as the automobile company had agreed to sponsor the show in syndication, providing the financial backing needed to begin full production of what would become the beloved sitcom. However, by the time all the contracts were signed and the production schedule was finalized, the owners of the horse that had appeared in the successful second pilot had sold the animal to someone else, leaving the production team without their star performer. This timing disaster meant that trainer Les Hilton suddenly found himself with an almost impossible task: locate, purchase, and train a new horse to take over the title role, with just 30 days remaining before cameras were supposed to start rolling on the first official episode. The pressure was enormous, because the show's entire future depended on finding an animal that could not only learn the complex behaviors required for the role, but also work well with the established cast and crew. Hilton began frantically searching farms and stables throughout the San Fernando Valley area, looking for a horse that had the right combination of intelligence, temperament, and appearance to replace their lost star. His desperate search eventually led him to a farm where he discovered Bamboo Harvester, a golden palomino show horse that the production company was able to purchase for $1,500, saving the entire series and launching one of television's most famous animal careers. Fact 13. Ed could perform phone calls and complex stunts. Bamboo Harvester possessed extraordinary intelligence and learning abilities that allowed him to master an impressive range of complex behaviors and stunts that went far beyond what most people would expect from any animal performer. Under the expert guidance of trainer Les Hilton, who had previously worked with Will Rogers and trained the mules for the Francis the Talking Mule movies, the talented horse learned to perform intricate tasks like dialing telephone numbers, opening doors and file cabinets, untying knots with his teeth, and even participating in various sports activities that were featured in different episodes of the show. What made Bamboo Harvester truly exceptional as an animal actor was his remarkable ability to understand and respond to complex verbal commands that could contain 20 to 25 words, allowing Hilton to give him detailed instructions for elaborate scenes without needing to break them down into smaller, simpler steps. Even more impressive was the speed at which the intelligent horse could master new behaviors, typically learning an entirely new scene or trick in just 15 minutes of focused training, which was extraordinarily fast even by professional animal training standards. This combination of intelligence, trainability, and quick learning made Bamboo Harvester invaluable to the production team because they could introduce new stunts and behaviors for specific episodes without worrying about lengthy training periods that might delay filming schedules. Whether the script called for Ed to answer a ringing telephone by picking up the receiver, open a door to make a dramatic entrance, or participate in a baseball tryout with the Los Angeles Dodgers, Bamboo Harvester could quickly master whatever the writers dreamed up. His ability to retain and execute these complex commands consistently during actual filming meant that many scenes could be completed in single takes, saving time and money while maintaining the high production values that made the show so professional and polished, despite its fantastical premise of a talking horse who could perform human-like activities with remarkable skill and precision. Fact 14. The show inspired a doomed 2004 remake. In 2004, Fox Television attempted to bring Mr. Ed back to modern audiences with a remake that featured an impressive cast, but ultimately became one of the most spectacular failures in television pilot history. The network hired Sherman Hemsley, who was famous for playing George Jefferson on the hit sitcom The Jeffersons, to provide the voice of the talking horse, while David Allen Bash took on the role of Wilbur and Sherilyn Fenn played his wife Carol in this updated version of the classic concept. The remake was directed by Michael Spiller and written by Drake Sather, who had high hopes of capturing the magic that made the original series so beloved by audiences in the 1960s. However, the pilot episode suffered from a fundamental misunderstanding of what made the original show work, replacing the gentle charm and innocent humor of the Alan Young era with a more modern comedy style that relied heavily on one-liners and obvious jokes that felt forced and artificial compared to the natural chemistry of the original cast. The production faced additional challenges when writer and producer Drake Sather tragically committed suicide shortly before the pilot's completion, adding a somber cloud over the already troubled project. When Fox executives finally screened the finished pilot, they quickly realized that the remake completely lacked the warmth, innocence, and magical quality that had made the original Mr. Ed so endearing to multiple generations of viewers. The pilot was so poorly received that Fox immediately decided not to pick it up for a full series, and the remake attempt was quietly abandoned without any further development. The failed pilot can still be found on video-sharing websites, where viewers consistently describe it as terrible and lacking any of the charm that made the original series a classic, proving that some television concepts are so perfectly suited to their original time period and cast that attempts to recreate them decades later are virtually doomed to failure. Fact 15. Ed's real death was hidden from the public. When Bamboo Harvester died tragically in 1970 from an accidental tranquilizer overdose, the producers and his handlers made a deliberate decision to keep his death completely secret from the public, using his stunt double Pumpkin to maintain the illusion that Mr. Ed was still alive and well. This elaborate cover-up was motivated by genuine concern for the millions of children who were still watching Mr. Ed reruns on television stations across the country, as the show had remained incredibly popular in syndication even after its original run ended in 1966. Pumpkin, who was a palomino quarter horse that had served as Bamboo Harvester's body double throughout the series, stepped seamlessly into the role of making public appearances, filming commercials, and attending promotional events where fans expected to see the famous talking horse. The deception was so well executed that most people had no idea they were actually meeting a different animal, since Pumpkin had been carefully chosen for his similar appearance and had already been trained to perform many of the same behaviors that had made Bamboo Harvester famous. The secret was maintained for nearly a decade, with Pumpkin continuing to represent Mr. Ed at various events and commercial shoots, while the real star's death remained hidden from the entertainment press. This careful management of the truth allowed children and families to continue enjoying the magic of Mr. Ed without the sadness that would have come from learning about Bamboo Harvester's untimely death. The cover-up only came to light years later when Pumpkin himself died in Oklahoma in February 1979, and news outlets mistakenly reported this as the death of the original Mr. Ed. Even then, Alan Young chose to remain silent about the true timeline, later explaining that he didn't want to shatter people's illusions about which horse they had been mourning, allowing the gentle deception to continue protecting fans from the more complicated and tragic reality.